Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of CrossTalk. I'm your host, Kat Leigh. We're here with our intrepid producer, Elizabeth Holdhouse, and Matthew Malinowski. How you doing, Matt?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Matt and I go way back. We used to lead worship together. We were trying to figure out how many years ago, and I'm at a loss. I can't remember. They all
It's
kind of
got to
blur
be
together.
it's got to be 10 plus, probably.
Thinking. I'm
Well,
thinking.
yeah, probably about that.
I think you're about right. Like, how old is your oldest?
She'll be 8 in September.
Yeah. So yeah,
So
probably it was a couple
probably
years
about
before
that.
she was born at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Time goes by so quick.
I know it. Yep.
Ugh.
My I have two daughters. Daisy is will be 8 and Lily will be turning 6 in just a few days. So
Oh
crazy.
my gosh. I forgot that your youngest is has the same name as one of my daughters. We both
Yes.
have
Yep.
Lilies.
Yep.
Daisy and Lily. Oh,
Yep. My
see,
flower.
yep, I have flowers too. Our twins. Uh, we
Hmm.
have we have Lily, and then her twin is Chrissy, which Chrissy isn't a flower, but her middle name is Marguerite, which is Daisy in French. So we both have daisies and lilies.
Very cool. For Easter this year, they wanted to bring flowers up to the front of the church, and I just wanted to cut out pictures of their faces and put them on stems and lay them on the front. Like have I brought daisies and lilies, but I was too lazy to do all that work. But it was a funny idea.
That would have been adorable, and this would have been the year to do it. 8 and 6, they
No,
would have been
I
so
know.
into it. Next year, Daisy may be starting with the Dad, really?
Oh no, that started a while. I mean,
Oh,
yeah, that's
she's already
oh yeah. She's like 7 going on. I don't even want. It's I can't even.
about 15.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe.
I know when our oldest was she was about 8, yeah, 7, 8, right in that age. She started with the sass, and there was one time it was it was one of the funniest things. I wouldn't let her walk by herself up to the library. Now, it wasn't that it was that far, it was that she'd have to cross a 4-lane divided highway to get to the
Mm,
library. And I was just like, no, I can't take you. And no, you're not walking by yourself. And her
yeah.
friends were going to be there. So she wanted to meet her friends. And
Mm.
oh my gosh, she got so mad at me. She stormed into her bedroom and slammed her door, screamed, "You're ruining
Yeah.
my
Yep.
years old." I was like, okay, I can either be really ticked off at this or I can laugh at it. And I chose the
Mhm.
latter because why bother? Like, we are gonna have
Yep.
so many worse issues.
I know. Well, me and my wife Ashley always say, like, if we don't laugh, we're just gonna cry or get angry. Sometimes you
Hmm.
gotta choose to laugh.
Yep.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Belly laughing is better than throwing something.
Yeah, typically, yeah. Yep.
Oh my goodness. And you are just getting started, my friend. Oh.
I know. Oh, I know it. I know it.
Yeah. Yeah. We used to joke about, well, not really joke. It started as a joke when they were babies. It started as a joke. But having that many women in the house, we used to talk about Joe getting an apartment
Yeah.
just
I yeah.
just
I
for
mean,
safety.
I won't comment, but oh yeah, sure. I mean, I've got Ash the girls. We have a dog named Buttercup, so another flower girl. Um, we and my wife's family, her mother and aunt, and so like I'm surrounded by females a lot, and so I understand. I understand.
Estrogen is real.
Yeah. Yep.
Well. God be with you, my friend.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, as I was telling you before, the audience does not know. Speaking of, before we get into that, audience members, we've had some really good feedback. Feel free to post any suggestions, make them nice, please. And any comments, suggestions you have, we're now in our eighth recording. Um, one of the suggestions that we've had is we need an intro theme. I don't know. What do you think, Matt?
Intro theme doesn't hurt at all.
It doesn't. It doesn't. I don't know where we would go with it. Like, do we do just straightforward and serious? Do we do like tongue in cheek and spoof NPR Michael Rosenbaum? Or, I don't know where we would go with that.
Yeah. Well, you could do sort of a jingle type of thing, like a very catchy jingle type of thing, because um,
Mhm.
you want to implant it in someone's mind, and it never leaves. Um,
True. That's true.
I
Good words.
when I was in Florida I've been here for about a year and a half. Before that, I was in Florida for 5 years, and I started doing I created a digital marketing company, and I would write jingles and stuff. And
Seriously?
yeah, I
I
I only
didn't
had
know
one.
that.
I had only one like jingle that was pretty cool. It was for a plumbing company, and it was pretty good. It went, "If you
Oh,
broke your throne, no need to groan," and then it was a whole jingle. Anyways,
cool.
so I'd be happy to write, and I do music production. So I would love to make a some kind of jingle or intro.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I swear to you guys, this was not planned. This is just a God thing right here. I love this. So
Yeah,
yes, you are hired.
perfect.
I
I'll give you,
I pay in
give you
prayers
a
and
great
goodbyes.
deal. Oh,
Maybe dinner if you're close.
I'll just,
You
I'll
guys
just,
are close. You're back like in this neck of the woods, aren't you?
yeah, yeah. We're in Bristol.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
How long have you been here?
Uh, so like just about a year and a half. So we were here. We moved Thanksgiving of last year, like right before Thanksgiving of last year. So um, I'm not good at I don't really keep track of time. I don't know dates. I don't know anything. I ask Ash. She tells me everything I need to know. So
As most husbands do.
more than a year, less than 2 years.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, about a year and a half. I'd say
Yeah.
that's fair.
Yeah.
Wow. And I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I knew you were in the area. I didn't know you were in Bristol. That's
Right.
crazy. Yeah. See? All right. You learn new things
I'm
every day.
assuming you don't know that I'm a senior pastor either. Did you know that?
I did know that you were a senior pastor,
Okay.
but here in Connecticut, I don't know where you are. Like, what
Yeah.
church are you at?
So I'm at Calvary Advent Christian Church in Bristol. You know Bristol a little bit, all right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like it's off Route 6 and West Street. So it's at the corner. Do you know where Kind Care is? The big building, Kind Care.
yeah.
So if you go past that just a little bit, like right before you get up the hill there, there's a little house on the corner.
Okay.
That's where I live.
Oh my gosh.
And then the church is right behind that. Yeah.
Huh. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew you were pastoring a church down in Florida, but I didn't know what you were doing.
Right. Yeah. And here's what's great. This is even crazier. I actually went to this church when I was 12. I started about 12 years old. And then all the way past high school, I was actually at this church. I learned how to play drums here. Me and my brother started a band here, which is ironically probably the answer to your question that you're going to ask
Yes,
about
it
where I
is.
got my start. But I started playing drums here. I learned how to play drums. My mom was the youth leader. So the full circle kind of thing is just wild. Just I
That
mean,
is crazy.
you how the Lord put pieces in place to line up coming back home, um when it wasn't just about the church, but my family needed me, and it's pretty wild. Yeah.
That's cool. So yeah, that does perfectly segue into my question of how did you get started in worship ministry?
Yeah. So I mean, I I will say, um, I feel like I was blessed to have a mommy who would let me slam on pots and pans on the kitchen floor for hours, and just she would put on, worship music, and I really feel like that's where I developed a love for slamming sticks into things. And so yes, I'm a drummer. That's where I got my start. So my parents bought me a drum set one year for Christmas, and I fell in love with it. And I knew that I wanted to play in church and be a part of the worship team. And that's kind of where I got my start, just playing drums in church behind the scenes. My brother was played guitar and sang, and he started a worship band, and we would poorly play music anywhere we could. And over time we just developed more. And yeah, I mean, I've just always been a part of worship teams, mostly playing drums. I started directing a camp, a youth camp in Southington, and I only knew how to play drums, and there was nobody else who could lead music. And I thought to myself, I got to learn how to lead music. And I thought about just playing the drums and singing, but that would have been incredibly awkward and annoying. So I said to myself, we had a this is kind of a funny story. We had a retreat coming up, and I had like 6 days before the retreat, and I had nobody to lead some tunes for the kids. And I wanted them to be able to sing, because a lot of them love to sing,
Yeah.
and I didn't want a boring retreat. So anyways, I asked Pastor Barry, Pastor Barry, I said, he was my pastor and mentor at the time, and I said, can I borrow one of your guitars? I'm going to teach myself how to play guitar in the next 3 days. And he was like, okay, here you go. And I said, if I could just learn 3 chords and play
That's
them
what they
somewhat
say.
well,
Three
if I could just
chords.
learn a couple chords, then then I could lead for the kids. So I spent an entire night. I didn't sleep for like 3 days, and I said, I'm gonna build up calluses in 3 days. So I was, this is sick. I'm a weird, sick, kind of strange dude. And I like forced myself to hold the
Eccentric.
strings down for a long time so I could kind of, in my mind, I was building up callus. You can't really build up, but in my mind, I was like, I'm gonna beat the system here. I'm gonna be, anyways. Um,
Did it work?
so I actually taught myself that night how to play "Beautiful" by Phil Wickham,
No
and
way.
which is ironic because we've done that song before.
Yes, it's one of
We
my favorites.
Yeah, that's the first song that I taught myself how to play.
Oh my God.
It was like big at that time, and I wanted to be able to play it that weekend. And so that was the first song I taught myself. And then because I played it in the key of D, so I knew, um yeah, I don't know why I played in the key of D. I think it was like the only chords I knew, but then I taught myself the, like, I already knew the G chord and I already knew the D chord. So then I taught myself the C chord, and then I learned every song on the planet. So, worship. So, if I could play "I'm Trading My Sorrows," G and C, and I mean, I can get by. And then basically, I just kept my, in the key of G. You just keep your fingers in the same shape, and you can play all the chords. And anyways, I taught myself how to play guitar out of necessity to lead music for the kids that weekend, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. I fell
That
in love with leading the kids in worship, and they loved and they just gave me grace. And I was like, I learned how to play guitar, and we're just gonna sing. We're gonna make a joyful noise. It's gonna be rough, um and and like, it didn't matter. Like, they loved it, and I loved it, and it didn't matter how poor it was. Just, they, even the young kids realized he did this for us. Like, it was cool. It was very cool.
that
So
is very cool.
yeah, and I really fell in love with leading worship and singing, and that was never a priority to me. I wanted to be a drummer. Like, my dream was to be Kelly Clarkson's drummer. That was what I wanted to do, right? And
Okay.
yeah, random, but I love that
Hey, why
just
not? Dream big.
pop rock style of drumming. I love it. So
Yeah.
um
Oh, and I will attest, Matt can wail on the drums.
Thank you.
You're
I get
welcome.
to play drums now in church. It's awesome because we just, Tammy and John Nodis?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, John, we brought on John as our associate pastor and Tammy as our worship arts director, and so because the Lord has brought other leaders, I'm like I get to go play drums, so it's been fun. So I play drums for Easter. I get to play drums this weekend, and um, whereas the last 5 years in Florida, I just played my guitar and I play a kick drum, so I'm like a one man band kind of thing, um,
Yep.
and
Yep.
it's
I
good. Like
remember
it's
well,
great.
you standing up
Yeah.
on stage, you got the acoustic, you got the kick right in front of you.
Yep.
And he could make it work. He can make it work every
It works, but it works. So yeah, the Lord had called me out behind the drum set, and Pastor Barry gave me my first opportunity to lead in the church, and I was sick all night. I was like worried. My stomach was a mess, and yeah, he gave me my first chance to lead it in the church, and
How old were you
and
then?
I was early 20s, 20. Uh, um I don't know, in my 20s, 24, 25 maybe, I don't know,
Okay.
something
All
like
right.
that.
So fairly
um
young then.
I was fairly young. um yeah, well, yeah, yeah, I'm 36, so yeah, it was probably my early 20s when he first gave me a shot to do
I
that.
was gonna say, because you've been doing it for a while when we came to that church.
Yeah, when you guys came, it was probably, i I mean, I don't know how long we were together, like at the church, because I maybe a year.
It was about a
Honestly,
year. It
I
was
don't
about a
remember.
year.
Probably about a year. And so we had left. We had left, and I started pastoring in Massachusetts, and so it was about a year. So yeah, it was probably three years where they where you know but before that, I had still been a part of the team playing drums and doing stuff for probably 7-ish years before that. So it
Yeah.
wasn't like I just showed up and yeah. Um,
Not like me.
who's this just
Show
showing up?
up and hey, let me be a part of this. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you brought excitement that none of us had really experienced before. Yeah, I mean that in a in the night in a nice way. We were,
Thank you.
it was, well, maybe I shouldn't say
I
that.
don't think a lot of people were ready for that.
No, I mean, yeah, not used to it, not ready for it. Like it's funny because everybody has different. uh, Well, the church. Well, that's probably a conversation for another time. But the church was, uh, traditional, and so some people, whatever. I loved it. I like the excite. Anybody who's excited is that's cool with me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And that,
Um,
that's just I don't know how you lead worship and not get excited, honestly.
sure,
Like
sure.
praising the Lord. Why do we want to be somber about this?
Yeah,
I,
I've had to. So some people. So it's interesting because in preaching, I you can apply this to worship leader because as a counterpoint to what you said, as far as how do you not be excited, I think excitement can show in various ways. And like in my preaching, I am not like a very um I don't know, like I'm not loud. I don't yell. I'm not a fire
Mhm.
and brimstone type of preacher. Um, I just preach the word of God, and but I've told people don't mistake my tone of voice for lack of passion or excitement for God's word, because that would be a mistake. And I there's a line. So like in music, you have people really, 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 really showing their excitement, and you have someone very passive, and there's various reasons for that. I always find it interesting how people express, like,
Yeah.
and and I would just
Oh, yeah.
say that the
Yeah,
way you expressed your excitement was different than what you know what, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah. And I don't say that to put anyone down who's not. I just
Right.
personally, like, I remember as a kid, I used to get so frustrated with the church that we would go to. I mean, the churches, there were multiple that we
Hmm.
went to like this, and they'd sing the hymns, and there's nothing wrong with hymns, but
Right.
they'd sing the hymns and it's like you're singing a funeral dirge. And it's like,
Yes,
wait a minute, these things are disconnected in my head. They don't match. Why are
I
we,
agree.
yeah, why are we singing like this when we're supposed to be, like we're singing praise the Lord, he saved our soul, but it's praise the Lord, he
Yeah,
saved.
I agree. And honestly, to me, do you remember Dave Wedge?
No.
No, he was at Grace probably before you. And I grew up going to church with him in various places, and he plays organ. And
Hmm.
I remember one time at Grace, we did baptisms, and
Hmm.
I was to play a song in between the baptisms. Cool. I
Okay. Yeah.
played I played I Surrender All.
Okay.
And it was
Yeah.
like 45 minutes long because I I played it so slow. And I remember Dave Wedge coming up to me after and he goes, you can play that a little faster. Like,
Uh-huh.
and the idea of the hymn sounding somber is typically because if you just bump up the BPM and you play it with, like we said, a little bit more of an excitement, it
Hmm.
naturally increases the excitement sound of it. Not that you're singing it any differently, but the
Yeah.
tempo of it, like I mean, obviously, when you play music and it's dragging, everybody in the
Hmm.
world can tell there's something wrong. People who
Yep.
don't know music might not explain what it is. They just go, "There's something wrong." Uh,
Yes,
it,
exactly.
it's like is dragging. Even when a drummer is like every other beat dragging, it
Hmm.
like hurts the music, and you might not know what it is, but
Yep.
like a hymn, just I surrender all, and I'm like, I just remember singing it like he was like, sing it faster. I'm like, and then I did it, and I was like, oh yeah, that changes everything.
It
You know what
does.
I mean? With more strumming,
Hmm.
it makes an I surrender all like, oh, do I really have to surrender all to Lord? You are worthy of my surrender. It changes that. It changes everything.
Exactly. Exactly. And when you know a little bit of the history, and I know a very little bit of the history, so feel free to correct me, audience. But when you think back, when the hymns were created, a lot of them were written in the 1800s, and they didn't have amplification, so we are solely using pipe organs and pianos here. Um, and two, there you need them to be able to be followed, right? You need
Right.
people who aren't necessarily literate in music to be able to follow them. You need to be cognizant of the space that you're filling. Some of these churches were quite big.
The space that you're filling.
The space that you're filling,
Right.
yes, because I'm thinking like the bigger, more formal churches, not the little church out on the prairie,
Right.
where if you try to play an organ or a piano in a boogie woogie type beat, it's going to get lost because it just echoes, and nobody would be able to follow it. It would become mud
Right.
as far as the
Right.
sound goes. So I understand, the reason that a lot of the songs were written that way, but we don't have those issues now. So we can,
Yeah.
the people who are the traditionalists who try to tell me, and I've talked to a couple who try to tell me, we need to honor the songwriter and the reason why they wrote it. I said, well, they're writing it for Jesus, and Jesus is still the reason that we're doing all of this. I don't,
Hmm.
original intent as far as the musicality goes. No, the song's still the same. We're still
Right.
just praising the Lord, and we're just updating it to our current time, you
Right.
know. Um,
Yeah.
we
I
don't
think
speak
you're
Old
right. Yeah.
English, which is why King James
Right.
is sometimes very difficult to read,
Sure. And I think you made a good point when you're like the reason and the roots of these the the hymns were to honor the Lord. So I hear a lot of times, I won't mention, well, I mean, it's been brought up here and been brought up in Florida where at the church it's like we want to do hymns, we want to honor the old people. I'm like,
Mm,
that is never the reason why we are work. I mean, we are
yeah,
honoring Christ, and if the older generation enjoys that style of worship, praise the Lord. But that's not the core reason why we're doing it.
exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
The hymns have so much truth and so much beautiful. I mean, it proclaims
Absolutely.
so much beautiful truth of Scripture that it would be. I think. I mean, I grew up singing hymns, so maybe I'm a little biased, but I think it would be silly to exclude hymns from our worship.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah,
at the same time, if there's a lot of modern churches that don't sing hymns at all, and if that's what suits their worship style, then that's great. But for me personally, leading a church, I would never want to see hymns gone, because I think you would be missing out on a lot of awesome encouragements and just rich scripture driven songs.
absolutely. I'm totally with you on that, that they are beautifully written. Um,
Right.
but to say that we can't update, like you said, play I Surrender All at more than, 62 beats a minute.
Yeah.
And wow, you still got that beautiful hymn, but now you've got
Right.
it in a way that's much more relatable and frankly doesn't put you to sleep.
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting I've kind of fought that, and it's not really a fight, but it is an interesting discussion. I've had it in pretty much every church that I've been in,
Hmm.
and every church falls a little different. Grace, where we were, they fell down on the absolutely it has to be traditional. I'm like, well, I don't really have that capability, so sorry.
Yeah.
We at that point we didn't even have the piano, you know. So
Right. Right.
it's like, I included it was funny. We actually did have a conversation once after you had left, and they're like, yeah, we really want more hymns. And I keep a ledger of my worship sets so that
Hmm.
I don't repeat and that kind
Sure.
of a thing. But I keep the ledger. And so I go back and I brought the ledger. I'm like, look, him. Every week
Right.
I had at least one hymn, but they're like, but it wasn't traditional. I'm like, no, it's not traditional, but it's still the hymn.
Right.
I'm working with a guitar and drums here. It's not going to be
Right.
traditional.
Hmm.
Sorry.
Then, well, if you want to get technical too, you can break that down. Not to get like geek out over. You can break that down and say, well, what is traditional? And you could have 10 people in that room, and each of them say one different thing. You could never
Yes.
meet the standard of what everybody believes is traditional. Okay, well, it has to be played on the piano. Okay, well, we don't have a traditional piano. The piano we have is not traditional, so we can never meet your requirement, or
Hmm.
what you've created in your standard as what means to be traditional. So
Right.
does traditional just mean boring and slow? Okay, if that's what traditional means, that doesn't fit what I'm doing as a worship leader. So
Yeah.
it's a give and take kind of thing. But when you break it down, the only way to be traditional, like you said, is to put the songs in the original tunings and to haul in a giant pipe organ, or to whatever it is. And obviously we can't do that, so we have what we have.
Right.
um
Right.
so then you have the call. Okay, well, if it can't be traditional, you either don't do it. And it's
Yeah.
kind of like the idea of, wouldn't it be better to do it the way we're doing it than not at all?
Exactly.
All right, so
Exactly.
then let's go to lunch and have a good day.
Yes. Exactly. And it all comes back to who are we honoring? Who are we
Right.
honoring? What is our intent in our worship? Is our
Right.
intent to, honor the tradition or honor the Lord? And
Right.
sometimes those two can meet and sometimes they can't. And so eh, we work within the structure of what we are given. Like you said, we don't have the traditional instruments, and then Yeah. Anyway, I think we're beating a dead horse at this point. But it is an interesting, to me anyway, it's a very interesting topic because it comes up so frequently.
It does. And based off of that topic, I mean, that I will we'll beat another we'll choose another horse to beat up. But kind of going off that topic is the idea. I've had this debate quite a bit in church and online. I don't really engage with it online as much as I used to, but the idea of playing songs that you playing songs in church that you disagree with the theology of the leadership or those who wrote the song, or you have these songs that you play where it's really sad, but as I'm sure you're well aware of, there's an increasing number of Christian artists leaving the faith, announcing their faith,
Yeah.
and I feel like every other week I'm reading another story of a Christian artist that I looked up to in my life leaving the faith, right?
Yeah.
And so that becomes a question. Oh, do we sing? I've had this fight where it's like, well, do we sing these songs? Do we do we not sing these songs because the artist or the obviously you have the major obviously you have the major thing. You got Hillsong and
Hmm.
you've got Elevation and you've got and I don't know where you stand on their theology and their pastors and that kind of thing. That's not even the discussion. The discussion is if you did disagree, do you play those songs and lead those songs? I'd
Yeah.
be curious to hear what your thoughts are on that. I mean, obviously, I
I
have my
I
own thoughts.
actually I'm so glad you brought this up because I have wrestled with that. It's like Hillsong, you brought up Hillsong. We all know the Hillsong story, right? And if you don't, Hillsong kind of like
Have
they're
I ever
going
told you
strong
my
like
Hillsong story?
yeah, go ahead.
No, no, no. Finish your thought. I'm
Oh,
just asking you. Have I ever told you my personal Hillsong story?
no, no, you
No,
haven't.
you'll love it. Well, you won't love
I
it.
definitely want to hear it.
You'll actually really not love it. But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just
No,
excited
no, no,
because
no.
I thought
Yeah,
maybe I
okay,
told
we're
you that story
definitely
before.
circling back to your Hillsong story. But yeah, so for those of you who don't know, I mean, for the two people who didn't watch the documentary, Hillsong kind of had some questionable leadership there for a while, and their motivations were it turned much more earthly than toward God. We'll just leave it at that and
Right.
leave the rest for
And
everyone else.
how long ago was that?
That's gotta be now 10, 15 years at least.
Right. So, um, yeah, okay. That tracks. So about if you go back almost exactly to that, about probably a little more than that,
Okay.
is when my band was we were recording our record, and at that time we were called the United. I don't know if you remember that band. We had the United.
I do remember that band name. I don't think I ever saw you together, but I remember
Yeah.
that band name, yeah.
So our band name was the United. It was an acronym, and so one day my brother gets in the mail an official letter from a lawyer, and it was from Hillsong United, and and
Oh,
yeah, and they sent us this lawful basically
cease and
demand
desist type of thing.
saying change your name or we're gonna sue you. And
Yep.
so we were like, what the heck? Like,
Yeah.
why would this massive, I mean, international massive conglomerate be coming after this little small time band in Connecticut who
Yeah.
travels up and down New England playing worship music? Like, what would they stand to gain from this? Um, and we were shocked. And it's a really sad story because um, it shows the seeds of what you were just talking about,
Yeah.
and, and obviously it came from the leadership of the group. The lawyer had told us that the person who had reached out was like one of the heads of like leadership in the church. So that's
Oh,
crazy to me.
yeah.
Um,
That they would
but
take that time.
It's insane. Uh, this
You're leading
this
a worldwide church and you take the time for this little
it's
band to
insane.
connect it.
It's
Wow.
insane. It is wild. I still can't believe this happened.
No,
All right.
no.
So this is the really sad part, and this caused a massive break in our band. It caused a massive just tear in sort of me and my brother's relationship. It's fine
Why?
now because I've just let it go, but I'm still frustrated at this. So uh, we continued to record our record. We changed our name because we had to, because without talking to us, without having a band meeting, without and my brother took it upon himself as the leader of the band to settle the case with them
Hmm. Okay.
for a grand total of $5,000. Whoop de doo. So he came back to us. We had band practice one night, and he said, "I settled that thing with Hillsong," and I was like, "Oh, amazing! Like, what'd you get? Like, are we rich?" And he's like, "Oh, I got $5,000." And I'm like, "What?" Like, yeah, that's a lot of money, I guess, and but not really. Like,
The grand
I
scheme
was
of things.
I was like, why didn't you ask for like 10 million? And then they say, no, we'll give you five. And then we're like, we can do whatever we want at that point.
Yeah.
Um, it caused a big problem. I was very upset for a long time at that because
Mm.
I thought that could have been like a turning point in our band. Because if you have money, you're able to buy the best. You can essentially what we wanted to do in order to open for big bands. You got to buy your way onto their tour or buy their way onto a big show. You can pay to be on, like you can pay to open for Skillet. It just costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if we the record we were making was awesome. I still love it. I think it's the best record we ever did, and that really hurt the band a lot. That caused a lot of division between us, and to me, that was like the beginning of the end of our band.
Mm.
Now, I say all of that to say this: I gladly and willingly still sing Hillsong songs to lead worship because I think they proclaim truth, right?
Yep.
Which is interesting because not only do I not agree with the leadership and kind of what Hillsong is as a whole. Not only that, but then I also have a personal story where they kind of personally attacked our worship band,
Right.
and even so, on Palm Sunday we still sang Hosanna
Yep.
because the words Hosanna, Lord save us now, it goes far beyond any human being. So um, I said I online one time I was going back and forth with a group of people talking about how they're no longer going to sing any of those songs, and I said, listen, what I know is this is what I said. I don't know why I used him as an example, but I said, if Phil Wickham tomorrow comes out and says I'm a Satan worshiper, that Sunday I'm still going to sing "This Is Amazing Grace" with my church, because when they sing out, they're singing out the glory of God. They're not singing out an artist or a person. Like, that is the opposite of what, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
That and
Exactly.
anyways, that's kind of my whole
And
spiel with the Hillsong
yeah,
thing.
no, I think that's for me, that's spot on. I've had that same exact discussion with people, and it really does with me too. It boils down to one, I don't go to their church, so I'm not thinking about what their church leadership is doing, right? I'm looking at the song itself. And if that
Right,
song is proclaiming Jesus, proclaiming the glory of God, then that song, especially if it slaps. Come on. Of course I'm going to
right.
use it
Oh,
on a
one hundred
Sunday,
percent,
right?
100%. I agree. I agree completely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I will say this: that there are certain songs that I don't sing because
Sure.
I disagree with them theologically. One in particular, I don't sing, but like it's so hard for me because it's such a good song. I love the music of it. Um, I
I
love
kind
the
of want to put you on the spot and ask you which one it is, but then the other side of me says no. So as a
you
pastor,
get.
do you want to say which one?
I will try to guess what song it is.
Let me see. Just
It's somewhat new.
based on what I've heard, based on what people have brought to me, I'm gonna say Reckless Love.
Yes.
Nah, I knew it.
Yeah. the fact that that song brings up so much controversy to me
Mhm.
is is interesting. I thoroughly, I really, really disagree with it and the theology of it. And I have read all of the art. I mean, I'm not, it's not blind. I have
Mhm.
watched tons and tons of videos with, what's his name? Corey Asbury, I think his name is.
I think
And
so, yeah.
I've read his articles and I've read the heart behind the song and all that. And I just think it's off and it makes me sad because the the world like younger youth kids what I've seen because I lead I co-direct a camp in you ever heard of Camp Swanee in Florida.
No.
Yeah, so um anyways I go there and I help. I'm a co-director there, and I would do music and stuff, and every other kid every night would come up to me and go, uh, they call me Master Pat there. They go, Master Pat, can you can you play Reckless Love tonight? And I would say no. I would say why, you know, why not? And I would say, well, if you want to know why, I'll sit with you and talk with you. Not right now, but I'll sit down and tell you why. And
Mhm.
what I found is talking to all these kids, it boiled down to the fact that that's they think they want a cool God that's reckless. Like they want that's like
Mm.
my God's reckless,
Mm.
and they're missing the whole point of they're missing it because it's not about having a cool God that like is I you know you picture Jesus in sunglasses and like you know with his beanie on and he's got his Starbucks, um, and it's it scares me. It scares me because I think it's an inaccurate picture of Jesus, and
I would
reckless
agree with that.
is not a characteristic of God the Father.
No.
Um,
No,
because
absolutely.
and so what I found is when I read through all the articles on the work on the song, what I've noticed is that they are changing the definition of the word reckless to fit what they want to accomplish. Um,
Mm.
and I just think that's wrong. We can't just redefine words. That's what we're seeing in the movements of the world. We're redefining what woman
Yeah.
means. We're redefining all these words, and
Right.
that's what I think they've been trying to do, redefine the word reckless. The word reckless simply means to act without thought. So you're telling me a characteristic of God from the beginning, who laid the foundation of the world, is without thought? He is the most thoughtful. Like there, it can't. He can't possibly be reckless because he is before all things.
Mhm.
It's completely thought out in a way that we can't even imagine.
You
And
know, I don't disagree with most of what you say, actually. So let's have this debate because I have the other side of it.
sweet,
And
because yeah, go ahead, go for it.
I love these. I love these discussions. This is there is absolutely like zero animosity.
Oh, of course.
We can disagree on these things. It's
Oh,
no big
absolutely.
deal. I feel sorry for Christians who feel like they can't disagree on things.
I
Anyways,
I
um
agree.
so yeah, I've had these discussions, and okay, so I'm coming from the viewpoint of I'm looking at the lyrics. Okay, that's all I'm looking at. I didn't do a deep dive into Corey Asbury. I didn't do a deep dive into anything other than what the scripture says. We know the scripture reference of the shepherd will leave the 99 to go find the one, right?
Yep.
Um, and that's us. That's the representative of us. You
Right.
know,
Mm-hmm.
he will rejoice when he finds the one and bring it back to the flock.
Yep.
So one, it is that part is scripturally sound. The when I was your foe, still your love fought for me. That is scripturally sound. The chorus is what trips everyone up. And I agree, I can absolutely see your point of view. For me, the chorus is not describing God's characteristic, but what we as humans think of that action. We in our understanding, in my understanding, especially, I've got 99 sheep over here. I'm going to leave them alone to go off and find this one who wandered away. and I'm gonna rejoice and be happy about doing that. To me, in my humanity, that is reckless, but God's ways are not our ways. And I think that, to me, that's what the song is saying, that in our understanding of it, that seems reckless. But for God, no, he knows the plan. He knows why he's going after that lost sheep. He knows what he's doing, and there's absolutely nothing. So for me, it's kind of like a play on words. It's not saying that God is reckless. It just seems in our human understanding, which is not God's understanding, it seems like it's reckless.
Gotcha. I appreciate your thought. I have a couple points off of what you said.
Hmm.
I'll grant what you just said. I'll grant that that's the case. The the first issue is that's not what's being communicated to kids. They're not getting that.
Okay.
They're hearing God is reckless. Um, so let's
Yeah,
grant
I'm
what you
not I'm
said.
not singing this to a congregation of kids. So yeah, our
Right,
audience is
right.
absolutely different. Yeah. Okay.
Um, so so another point is the song becomes very horizontal rather than vertical at that point.
Mm.
So it's being sung about us rather than who God is.
Hmm.
You're singing a worship song based on our perception of God instead of what God's characteristics are. So that song becomes very horizontal rather than vertical. So that can be taken as an issue.
Interesting.
And then the third
Yeah.
thing is, I if it's true that the shepherd leaves the 99 to go after the one, that would be reckless. And if you just take the song and the scriptures for face value, yes, you can make that leap. But if you understand, and obviously, like, I wouldn't expect, like the youth listening to the song, because primarily this is being sung at youth camps, and I mean it is sung in church. Maybe I'm wrong there, but
No, I'm
anyway,
sung at church. Yeah.
yeah, at church. And I,
Yeah,
I
our
would
church
I would
actually really
argue
likes it.
we could this may be a different discussion, but I would argue that the vast majority of folks in church have a limited deep understanding of scripture and like the historical content of passages.
Hmm.
And that's why I'm a huge advocate for getting life groups and Bible studies and talk these things through.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the things you see is in the shepherding world, there is never just one shepherd. They shepherd in threes, which is representative Father, Son, Spirit. They shepherd in threes. You have, I mean, when the heavenly host comes to proclaim the birth of Jesus, there wasn't one shepherd, there were shepherds. So
Mm.
they're never alone. So when a shepherd leaves the flock, it's not reckless because the flock is protected by the other shepherds.
Okay.
It, and so
I've never
it,
heard that before. Thank you.
it yeah, it would be reckless if there was just one shepherd, but you don't have that in history.
Hmm.
Shepherds did it together, even when we don't see the account of it. Traditionally, they did it together because a lot of people can argue, well, David shepherded by himself, but I would argue against that. But I mean, you can. I
In
think
scripture,
that
it doesn't mention the other ones, so
right. It
you
doesn't
can
mention.
infer, but
So
we
you
don't
can,
know.
yeah,
Yeah.
you don't know, but I mean, we know that the shepherds in the New Testament there was multiple shepherds, and that was the tradition. The tradition is even shepherding today. Um, I watched an amazing video where it was three shepherds, and they're standing up on the hill, and each shepherd has a staff. Obviously, they have their staff, and it has a color ribbon around each staff. And then the sheep are in a massive herd where they're all mingled up, and each of them have that a specific color is red, blue, and green wrapped around their ankles. And when all three shepherds screamed out at the same time, they all separated perfectly into three separate groups according to color. Because
Okay.
John 10 says they know the
They
shepherd's
know the
voice and they
shepherd's
obey
voice.
it.
Yeah.
And so this idea that I'm the good shepherd is like there's these three shepherds. So as and I wouldn't expect everyone to you know just insert this deep historical understanding into this song. But I
Hmm.
think if you did, you would get away from that illustration as being reckless and more as God is just good because he does chase after me, but he
Yeah.
doesn't forsake the 99. Like he
Right.
doesn't forsake his church for you. That is reckless. God would never do that.
Hmm.
So in our understanding, if that was the case, I grant you, I agree with what you're saying. If the context to what you had explained were true, I have no argument. But I just don't think that it's it's good for the church. And I would even argue, I would say our American church, like our culture, to sing that. Um, However, I never tell anyone not to sing it, and I personally don't sing it, but I don't want to cause division. I'm not going to go
Right.
start a war. I'm just obviously we're having a talk, and I'm sharing with you.
Oh,
And
yeah.
no one I've
Yeah.
ever had this talk with, and not one worship leader, not one person who loves this song has ever stopped singing this song based on what I've said. So it's all good. I pray I pray the Lord's honored by their heart, and so
I
um
think one, this speaks to the other aspects of worship leading. You get a catchy tune and people are going to love it, right?
yeah,
And that's why you really got to pay attention to the lyrics. You got to pay attention to what's going on. But if you for me as the worship leader, and I know for my congregation, and I've had this discussion with our pastor as well, because we did have a couple come up and say, "Oh, you wouldn't do Reckless Love, would you?" And I'm like,
oh nice.
"I actually have, but thank you." You know, but
Right.
we've
That's
had
not the way to start a conversation.
no. Well, they decided to leave shortly after, so it was fine. But anyway,
What a reckless thing to do.
what a reckless thing to do. Exactly. Exactly. But it for our congregation and for me personally, I know when I sing that song, I am singing of God's love. And God's love for me, I can't understand it. And at times it to my limited understanding, and like I said before, it does take on what could be construed as a reckless nature, even though knowing God the Father, there is nothing reckless about him. You are absolutely correct. And so I think it's a yes, and it's a who are you singing it for? If you're singing this at a youth camp and they don't have that deep understanding, yeah, you either need to do a teaching on that,
Yeah.
or you need to just leave it out. Absolutely. I would
Right.
agree with you on that. I would
Yeah.
absolutely agree with you on that.
I
But
mean, I would.
yeah. I
Yeah.
think for our congregation, it's just singing of wow, we can't understand this love, and we're praising God for having this for us.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I just teaching Bible. I would never. I look at the scripture and it says His perfect love casts out fear, not His
Not his
thoughtless
reckless
love,
love.
not His reckless love, His perfect love, His thoughtful love. And so um, I will say the song is incredibly catchy. It is. I find it stuck in my head all the time, and
It's beautiful. Yeah.
I usually will sing thoughtful or sovereign or, and that's to me. I would never. I'm
Mhm.
not an advocate of changing words to worship songs. I think that's wrong. Um, and a lot of people have done that. I've watched
Yep.
videos where worship leaders will sing that song and they'll take out the word reckless and they'll put whatever they want. And I think that's wrong.
Mhm.
Um, I would argue just don't do the song.
Mhm.
Um,
Yep.
just as a musician and an artist myself who writes music, I can't imagine even if I wrote a song that was wrong, I would just say don't do the song.
Mhm.
Like if you don't agree with the song, don't do it. Don't change the words of a song that's not even yours. That drives me crazy.
So
But I would
on
do.
that, let me jump off of that and ask you your thoughts on something like Jesus Culture and David Crowder with How He Loves.
So like what? Sloppy wet, unforeseen?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, it's funny because
Sloppy wet kiss.
okay, so the difference there is David Crowder bought the rights to the song,
Okay.
so they can do whatever they want with it at that point.
Okay.
So and I would venture to guess that Crowder probably talked to Mark McMillan and said, "Can we want to we want this to appeal to more people, and so
Yeah.
we want to change it." And maybe even McMillan had a hand in. I have no idea, but maybe had a hand in coming up with something that was a little more appealing to the masses than Sloppy Wet Kiss. I am not a Sloppy Wet Kiss guy. I don't sing that. I sing Unforeseen because it's just strange to me. Um,
Yeah.
but as a
The
musician
imagery,
and
yeah.
a songwriter, I love it.
It does it definitely evokes a response.
Right. It's gross. I mean, it's gross, but like it he wrote it for a reason. He was in a place where that was what he was going through. So it's like I'm never gonna be like, but yeah, I mean they bought the rights to that song. The that happens a lot. I There's a song by Andrew Peterson that I love. Is he worthy? I'm sure you know that one.
I actually don't. I'll have to look that one up.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like a call and response song,
Mm.
and oh, it's fantastic. And the Andrew Peterson version is like it's one of my favorite songs. And then Chris Tomlin bought the rights to it. And typically smaller song, typically smaller artists, you know, they write these amazing songs, and then people like I don't want to throw Tomlin's amazing, but then Tomlin will buy the rights to the song and then release it to the masses. So it's like it'll change.
Mhm.
You know, the key will change obviously because Chris Tomlin sings in like she's like incredibly high voice, but like the key will change and some of the wording and the phrasing and this and that will change. And, you know, it is what it is, I guess, on that. Can't really.
Yeah. Love it or hate it.
Well, some of these smaller artists, that's how they live.
Yeah.
They kind of have to do that.
Yep.
A lot of small artists that are amazing songwriters don't have the giant production. So to feed their family, they sell their songs.
Right. Yeah, it is a way of making making music work. Unfortunately, and this is I don't I'm not saying anything against Chris Tomlin. Chris Tomlin is he's an icon in and of himself, and he would argue, no, it's not me, it's for the Lord, and that's what, makes him all the better as a worship leader. So no
Right.
hate to Chris Tomlin. Okay, all of that. That said, Chris Tomlin is very homogenous. A Chris Tomlin song is a Chris Tomlin song, and you get what you get.
Right.
You're going to get that soft, strummy acoustic guitar. You're going to get the strings. You're going to get a very metered song.
Yeah.
Um,
Perfect production.
yep, yep,
Yep.
yep. And that's what you're going to get with a Chris Tomlin song.
Right.
Me personally, I don't, that doesn't move me as much
Hmm.
as say, a Jesus culture out there with their sloppy white kiss,
Yeah.
but but it like you said though, for these little artists, God gave them an amazing talent. And if this is how they're able to use their talent, God bless them. But
Hmm.
that's one of the things that bothers me a lot about the Christian music in general, is that there is no room for the independent. And you would think in Christian music, you would make more room for the independent.
Yeah.
That's just my
Yeah.
thought.
it, it's I always find it the Christian the faith based I don't even know I don't think I want to call it Christian the faith
Fair.
based music I almost said ministry um music business is
Hmm.
just that it's a business
Yeah.
and it's about making money
Yep.
and and I don't think Chris Tomlin loses a wink of sleep having his team buy rights to his song and doing the the most perfect production on it any at all because it sells. It's what continues the wheels turning. Um,
Yep.
Having said that, a lot of churches and people use that to encourage people, build people up, and lead worship all over the world. So it's like this kind of double-edged sword where I am not gonna like I said, going back to the whole idea of playing Hillsong songs and this and that. I can only stand in between me and my flock, lead the way. You know what I mean? Like I'm never. I don't think God would ever be like, you know, well, Hillsong did this, Chris Tomlin did this. No one's going to be held accountable unless they're using it for, if the heart is genuine, singing a song that was released with the most perfect thing, and and maybe the artist, these huge major artists are not, I don't know who they say they are. Let's just say that. I don't know other way to, you know, then the Lord will be in charge of that. Like it's not on me. Like and everything is,
He didn't send us here to be the police officers.
yeah. Like it's yeah, it's tough though. Like it makes me sad, because I'm a small time artist. I've been working on a worship album for like 350 million years, and yeah, I wrote it with a Velociraptor, and no, it's taken forever. I started recording it in Tampa, Florida, at a studio in Tampa, with a dude who doesn't know the Lord, and I wanted to go to a secular studio to just bring Jesus to it, and this dude is like top notch stuff. I mean, really, really, really amazing. One of the best guitars I've ever seen in my life. Um,
Mhm.
and we record. I'm a small time artist, just recording music, and it's almost done, but it's been years and years because I just don't have the time I would love to put into it. But I'm like, I made it. You can hear the imperfections in it. You can hear the the fumbling of my guitar. You can hear the air conditioning in the back sometimes. You can hear different things, and it's not perfect, but to me that's what makes it great, is even when the production is not like perfect, like it's just the heart behind it. So
Yeah.
sometimes in the big huge things, sometimes I'm like, are they losing the heart behind this? I guess is my what I battle with.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would agree with that because to me, and this may not be, I honestly I don't think it is for a lot of people because, Chris Tomlin continues to it seems like we're picking on Chris Tomlin. Chris, we love you. Um,
No,
God bless you. But
really, just the music, the business in general, not just him.
yes. Yeah, he does he is that big name
Right.
representation, at least in my mind, as that homogenous thing.
Right.
And but I think, he still moves a lot of people.
Hmm.
He still is being used for Christ, and he is a force for God. So, God bless him.
Yeah.
When I'm picking out music for my worship sets, do I want to pick out a Chris Tomlin song? Nine times out of ten, no. Do I have a couple in my worship set? Absolutely. You
Right.
know,
Right.
because
Yeah.
and that actually, talking about the business aspect of it, that actually brings me to one of my personal pet peeves. So you, my dear sir, are blessed with being able to play instruments while you sing and lead
Mhm.
worship. I do not have that blessing.
Right.
I rely solely on backing tracks. Even in our church right now, we don't have the instrumentalists to have any kind of a band, so we use backing tracks.
Okay.
Do you know that Christian backing tracks cost about twice as much as secular? I
Yeah.
could go out, and I've done this because I have them. Um, there's just good songs. I went out, I bought an Evanescence backing track for like $3, $4.
Right.
It's well done. It's it is true
Right.
to the sound. Um,
Hmm.
for a Christian backing track, I can't get them for under 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And it
Because
is
the
just
churches, they're such in high demand. The churches, so many churches are using them.
And you would think because it's in high demand, because it's for God, you would think they would be, at least the same price, not more
Right.
expensive. So,
Yeah, totally.
that kind of flows into your thought of, well, we'll call it faith-based. Do we really want to call it Christian? That's not me to judge, but it seems,
Right.
you know.
At some point, you're ripping off the church,
Yeah.
and you have these small churches that don't have a whole lot of funds, and they need the backing tracks because they want to do music.
Oh,
They
and
want
don't even
the
get me
music.
started on CCLI rights. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
that
No,
whole licensing nightmare.
yeah. But
Oh.
they have these small churches that want to do music,
Hmm.
and so okay, we got to get the backing tracks, and it's like, you know, you can't buy three. You have to have a decent amount of them if you're going to do, if you're going to do backing tracks with, a bunch of songs. You have to have a library of them, and so yeah, I mean, what small church, um, where's your church?
Northford.
North Northford.
Yeah, it's a itty bitty little place. It's basically between North Branford, North Haven, and Wallingford.
So how far away do you live from Bristol? I don't know if you care. I'm asking you. I'm just curious. Like, how far away from me are you from Bristol? Are you close to your church?
No, no, I live right down the street from you. Um, yeah, I
Okay. Why don't we hang out?
think we should. Yes, you guys should come for dinner. Uh,
Yeah, that's
um,
so funny.
yeah, yeah, it's crazy. I didn't realize you were that close either until you said it. But no, it's like a 30-40 minute drive.
Wow.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Nice.
It was
That's a commitment.
it was a God thing that got me there. So Joe and I don't complain too much about the drive too much.
Yeah. Nice. Is
Yeah.
Joe running the soundboard?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Well, he's on the tech team.
Yeah.
Most Sundays he actually hands off the sound. There was a tech leader already there, and she was totally into just learning how things work. And so Joe loves that. So he's just like, yeah, I'll teach you. And that
Cool.
way I can do something else. So
Yeah.
yeah, Joe
Nice.
absolutely loves that.
Very cool.
But, yeah, yeah. For those of you who don't know, Joe is my husband. Um,
Sorry.
people just coming on, this episode haven't heard any of the other ones. Who's Joe?
I know. Well, I don't know if I don't know if any other guests have gone back like we've gone, so it's kind of funny.
In different ways, in different ways. So
Okay.
my first guest, no, he actually runs Christian Media Spotlight, Joe Neal. He was my first guest, and
Hmm.
we're actually on their platform. So
Yeah.
he already had all of this set up. I mean, you want to talk about another God thing. I had the idea to do a podcast, mentioned it to Joe, and Joe had just been praying for somebody to take over his podcasts.
Nice.
And so anyway, so that's Joe Neal. But yeah, I've had my worship mentor, George Tift.
Hmm.
Um I don't know if you know Stu Rideout. He ran Cafe at the Mill and then now up in Massachusetts.
Hmm.
Now he ran the coffee house up there for years and years and years. And
Nice.
so we had gone way back, even before you and I had met. But you,
Hmm.
I think, yeah, you're the first guest that I've actually like worked at a church with.
Mm.
So, that those couple of years that we led worship together, that's unique as far as my guests have been so far.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
but anyway,
Cool.
yeah, that story about Northford, I mean, you want to talk about God just kind of putting things in place. So I was teaching voice lessons at the Rock House in Wallingford. Shout out
Mhm.
to the Rock House, you guys are awesome. Um, so anyway, I was teaching voice down there, and I just I didn't advertise as Christian, but we kept getting worship leaders in to take voice lessons. And it
Mhm.
just so happened, I don't think they did this on purpose. It just so happened that their schedule and my schedule meshed the best. So they got
Mhm.
placed with me quite a bit. And this one young man, he came in and we started working together. We were working together for a little over a year, and he was making some really good progress. But last spring, I had to quit. I was in a band that was just their schedule, their playing out schedule is just ridiculous. We're talking like on average 4 days a week. Yeah, it was crazy. Last year was absolutely crazy for me.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and but a lot of it was the summer concert series at the towns, which are usually like Wednesday and Thursday during the
Yeah.
week.
Uh-huh.
And so, well, that was when my voice lessons were scheduled. And so I'm like, this isn't fair. I keep having to call off these weeks, and it's not fair to my students. I'm just gonna go ahead and step back, and I'm gonna focus on the band this year. So I did that and lost all of my students there, obviously.
Mhm.
I still had a
Right.
couple up here that were more that were private, had signed on privately. But for the most part, I gave up teaching that year.
Mhm.
So, missed my students,
Yeah.
obviously. But
Sure.
it was probably 3, 4 months later. So I quit early summer, and I think I got a call in early, maybe July, um, late June, early July. It was a couple months anyways. I got a call or a text from my student, and I made a point of giving my phone number to all my students, like if you have questions during the week, you can contact me, that kind of a thing. So
Mhm.
he had my phone number, and he texted me, and it was actually, "Hi, this is," and I'm just going to say Miles' name, and this is Miles's mom. And I'm reading this. I'm like, okay. Um, and she goes, "Our church needs a new worship leader. We're looking for a new worship leader. Um, can I give the pastor your name?"
Mhm.
And I'm like, "Okay, well, where's your church?" And she goes, "Northford." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, okay." So
Yeah.
that one right there was like, no, this is a no, God, you're really not doing this, right?
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, it's the least I can do. I'll talk with the pastor.
Mhm.
And so I called the pastor, and he and I talked for over an hour. And I tell you, Tank, Matt, it's just, it was the weirdest thing. It was the weirdest thing that during that conversation, I hadn't heard a pastor speak biblical truth and Christian love since Joe and I moved from Columbus, Ohio. I
Mm.
hadn't heard that in Connecticut from
Mm.
any of our pastors, and we had been through several churches.
Mhm.
And it was just phenomenal the way that it was easy, it wasn't contrived, it wasn't like, oh, I have to say the right thing. It was so conversational, and just my my spirit reacted. It was like when you are in a place, or when you meet someone, I don't know if you've ever had this happen to you, but every once in a while it's almost like Mary's aunt, when she went down and her spirit left, you know. Um
Mhm.
I felt that, and I'm like,
Mm.
okay,
Mm.
but it's 40 minutes away.
Yeah. Right.
And but it was just like, no, we've got to at least look into this, right? So
Right.
Joe and I went down. It's this old church building. It's been there since, well, the original building was built in 1792.
Mhm.
It's a big brownstone church. It was gutted in the mid 1800s by fire, but the original structure is still there. The shell was still it
Yeah.
was not damaged. But anyway, so this church has been there for forever. But when we got there, there were like maybe 2 dozen people in the pews.
Mm-hmm.
And it we're just like, okay, so it's small church. Um, they had just left, the pastor had signed on, he had signed on about 2 years prior, and he took them out of the congregational denomination, made it into just a non-denominational community church, and just preached the Bible. And we went to probably 2 or 3 services before we agreed to sign on, and we were we were just it felt like coming home. It was
Yeah.
crazy. So it's like, and now that I'm leading worship there, I actually auditioned for them. I
Mm-hmm.
did a night of worship, like a coffee house type format.
Yep.
And that night it was phenomenal. I'm still blown away. You can tell I'm like trying to put my thoughts together and trying to express this
Yeah.
in so that you can read how much or hear how much it actually impacted. But this congregation worships. This
Yeah.
congregation, and this is not derogatory, at least it's not intentionally derogatory, but I've led worship at several churches where people stand with their arms at their sides and sing the songs, but their eyes don't
Mm-hmm.
light up. There's no expression in their face. I mean, just nothing.
Right.
And that, as a worship leader, like you said at the beginning, I put some energy into what I do just because
Mm-hmm.
that's just who I am.
Right.
I'm not a calm worship leader.
Right.
And these people, uh, they worshiped with me.
Mm.
And that's what I've been looking for so long.
Mm.
We had that in our congregation when we left Ohio, when we moved out here from
Mm.
Ohio. That congregation loved to worship. And
Yeah.
boy, they would get going on a Sunday morning. It was so uplifting and such a joy to me. And
Mm-hmm.
to not have that for so many years, it was very difficult.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what I've always said is like, I'm not performing. I'm not up here trying to perform for you. I'm not your entertainment. I am worshiping God and I'm just inviting you to join me,
Yeah.
right? And these people joined me, and it's like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, it was so great. So
That's
I
cool.
signed on. I started officially in August, and we've been there, well, it's almost May now. So,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been there that long, but
Right.
it's just phenomenal. It's
That's
just been
awesome. I
uh
love all that for you. That's so cool.
thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. But yeah, it is a drive.
Yeah. Well, it's a commitment, obviously,
Yeah.
and I'm assuming based on what you're saying, it's the commitment. It's an easy commitment because of how good it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the sense of, I mean, obviously, it's not easy, probably in the sense of like for me, I've never experienced that because in Florida, I lived across the street from the church, and here I live even closer. So like I've never experienced that, but I mean, obviously there's plenty of other commitments that are like, it's you got to go where the Lord's called you, whether
Yeah.
it's in this place or that place. What you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
That's awesome though. I'm happy. I'm just so happy for you for that. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's been amazing. I mean, and we're just getting started, you know?
Yeah.
It's crazy. So that congregation, and this speaks to John. I am not taking any credit for this. John Vigneri is the lead pastor. Well, he is the pastor. There is no associate pastor.
Yeah.
Um, John Vigneri at Northford Community Church. He is just he's so sound in the Bible and in the truth. And he leads his congregation in a way that that truth is plain to see, but it's in love. So he strikes that balance, the truth and love. You know, a lot of churches, I know you know this, a lot of churches will tend one to the other. You know,
Yeah.
it's either all about the truth and lacking on the love, or they go too far the other way. It's all about the love, but they don't proclaim the truth. He
Absolutely.
found that balance, and people, he's so easy to respond to, you know.
Yeah.
And that church, that little congregation of a couple dozen people, in the 6 months that I've been there, 7 months that I've been there, we are now averaging around 80 people on a Sunday. So
Nice.
people are just responding really
That's so
well
cool.
to him.
That's like exact. That's so awesome. That's like exactly what's happening here. Like when I got here, there
Love
was
it.
like 10 or 15 people.
Yeah.
And this Easter we had about 80. So we've been
Oh,
at so we've been we're it seems like we're growing similarly. That's awesome. I love what you said. And what's crazy is I've been preaching through. So I've been doing a series almost a year now, called Love for the City, and I'm going
mhm.
through. I went through First Corinthians, and I'm starting to go through Second Corinthians now. We just took a break for a few weeks, obviously with Palm Sunday and Easter and things like
Yeah.
that. But um, I'm in Second Corinthians chapter 3, and the end half of it is kind of that idea. It's about the balance between, I mean, legalism and grace, essentially.
Mm.
And I love what you said, because all the things you said is like I totally identify with as trying to bring the balance between the things, and it comes down to not my preference. It doesn't come down to what people need or this or that. It comes down to how Jesus came. And John 1 says Jesus came full of truth and grace. It was this balance of the law and grace, and how do they come together, and how Jesus fulfills the law with grace, by grace. It's and Yeah, I'm that's great. Those leaders are who we need. That's who this country needs. Those leaders that bring the good news in a way that's digestible, um, and a way that is loving and full of humility, and
Yeah.
not to, I've listened to a lot of preachers preach condemnation,
Yep.
and you know, I pray that the Holy Spirit would bring conviction, and and I'm just a messenger. But anyways, I love that. I love that. Those are the leaders we need. Those are the leaders that we're trying to rise up to, to raise up here. Um, and and we believe that we're seeing it. We're seeing it. My brother-in-law, somewhat new to faith, and he's the youth leader here. Small group, but just discipling and leading and raising up leaders that are don't always get that balance right, but are dedicated to living like Christ in that way. Um,
Yeah.
and I love it. I'm so happy that uh, that you guys are at a place where you feel at home, and it's a family. And our whole thing here at our church is family. We our tagline for our church is, when you're here, you're family. So
Ah,
uh,
nice.
when someone comes into our house, into this house of worship, they are treated like family, no matter what they look like, smell like, whatever. They're part of the family, and like my house is part of the church. Like, if you come into my house, you go into the fridge, you do whatever you want. This is your house. You're my family. Like, immediately, you are part of my family. So it's like that that idea is that's what people need, is to feel a sense of family, belonging, and love, even when their earthly family can't do that. Um,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. Because oh my gosh, we are living in a time where so many people have broken families.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
And
it's
yeah,
scary.
it is.
My girls go to a Christian. My girls go to a Christian private school. They go to Central Christian in Southington,
Okay.
and even in Florida, they went to a private Christian school. And I just remember seeing parents like divorced parents, and I'm not making a statement that like, oh, if your kid goes to Christian school, then all the family should be perfect. Not at all. That's not what I'm saying. I
Absolutely
just
not.
I'm just saying my heart was broken over even the amount of broken families within this Christian family, this
Yeah.
Christian school. Um, you're right. There's it's sad. I mean, I worked as a director and counselor for many years in Southington at a camp, and it wasn't like one or two kids with broken homes. It was all of them, and it was like they have no context for family.
No.
They have no context for healthy relationships. So
No.
here I am, so then I have to ask myself, and now here I am, like preaching to adults who I think, oh, they all have these contexts. No, no, a lot of them were raised in broken homes, and so, okay, they still, even though they're adults, still don't necessarily have all the right ingredients for a healthy, God honoring, loving relationship with like what a family, how a family ought to operate. But
Right.
the good news is God gives us how the family ought to operate, and it. So we need good preaching. We need biblical
Yes.
preaching. Um,
Yes.
I'm
Well,
I get
it sounds like, like you said, your congregation is growing. They're responding to that balance, to that. I think people are hungry for truth. You know,
Oh, absolutely.
we've heard so much condemnation, but then we've also heard, oh, just love everyone, and unicorns will throw up rainbows all over us,
Right. Right.
and
Right.
it's no, there's some truths that we need to know and we need to abide by, but that doesn't take away the love. And when you find that
Right.
balance, and it sounds like you have, and that's wonderful. Um,
Yeah.
when you find that balance, that's what we're just aching after.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. I'm so happy to hear for your church, Matt. It just how
Yeah.
wonderful that's coming.
Awesome. Oh, it is. It's awesome. Yeah. I have the opportunity to preach Monday at a leadership conference. I'm the vice president of our conference, the New Life conference that we're a part of,
Mhm.
which is a very low responsibility, but it's cool. It's cool that I get to be a part of it, and I basically just go to board meetings and hang out. It's cool, but it's a old our denomination is older, and I'm seeing younger pastors start to come forward, and it's exciting.
Mm.
Um, and but anyways, I'm excited. Pray for me on Monday because I get to preach to a bunch of preachers that have been doing it for decades. I mean, 40, 50 years.
Oh,
And I had threw my name in the ring, and I was like, I don't know about this. And the Lord said, it's going to be good. So I was like, all right, I'll give it a try. And I'm just like, the Lord gave me peace about in your flesh. Yeah, you're worried about preaching to preachers, but these are my children. These are
hmm.
the like it doesn't matter. Like they need to hear the word of the Lord just like anybody else.
Yeah.
Um, and
Sometimes even more so,
even
because
more, yeah, no,
pastors
100%.
don't get to be fed very often.
100%. So it's I love it. Palm Sunday, John preached. I said, "You ever preach on Palm Sunday?" He goes, "No." I said, "Well, you are this year." So I love it. He came to me and said, "Man, I want to learn how to preach." And I was like, "You will
Oh,
learn by doing."
yep.
And
Best
I,
way.
that's how I learned. I learned by doing. I was thrown into a really tough situation, and I learned, and the Lord just walked with me. Anyways, um, I am just so pleased to hear of the good leadership in times when I'm hearing of the opposite. it's
Hmm.
good to hear. It's good to hear from you that there's good leadership and good growth, and oftentimes we think that, like, I've talked to people and they're like, and I'm like, oh, we're experiencing growth in our church, and they're like, oh, well, we have 4,000 people in our church. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. No, we
Hmm.
have, we're growing in the way that the Lord would have us grow.
Yeah.
We're not
Yeah.
growing in the way that, you know what I mean. So it's every family is different.
Yeah.
I In Washington, my brother and sister live in Washington State, and the families there, they have lots of kids. Like almost every family in the church, they each have like 10 to 12 kids.
My goodness.
Yeah, and so the one of the traditions in that area is you just have kids. And I've noticed that, and this doesn't say anything bad, but I've noticed that even moms, even ladies that have some health issues or a little older or whatever the case is, it's like, no, we still have kids. We have kids until God tell is
Wow.
right. And so, you know,
God
some
bless them.
some families are different, right? So
Yeah.
me and Ash have struggled because we love to have more kids, but she and Lily almost died in the hospital with Lily. Lily was not far away from dying, from complications, and she has a lot of health issues. She has MS. She has a lot of health issues from her pregnancy, and the doctor said, it's not like the wisest thing in the world to, and so every family's different, and you have to make the best decision to honor the Lord that you can. So I told that's how church is. Every
Yeah.
family is different, and God is honored by each family. And some families grow really big and split, and they make other families, and it's it's all good. But when other leaders are like, oh, that church isn't worth it, or that place isn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's crazy. The Lord sustained this church that I'm at for 15 years straight with less than 10 people,
Yep.
and just
Yep.
sustained it, and just paid, and they paid the bills, and they kept going. The pastor who was here, he's a missionary, so he spent a lot of time in Africa doing lots of mission work, but the Lord called him to stay here, and that's amazing. I say I couldn't be here and experiencing the growth we're experiencing without the foundation laid of, okay, God is going to preserve a remnant people. God always preserves a remnant people
Yep.
and builds them up.
Yeah.
And when does he build them up? In his timing. You know what I mean? In his
Yes.
perfect timing, he
And
builds
in
them
his
up
way. Yeah.
in his way, in his timing. And anyway, so
It's so easy to get caught up on the numbers, though. And I think
oh yeah.
that a lot of people do that. They're like, oh, well, you haven't broke 100 yet. It's like, wait a minute. No, that's not what this is about. That's
Right.
not, it's,
Right. No, absolutely not. Not at all. And the Lord can do, like in Acts 2, we see a massive explosion of the church. God can do that.
Mhm.
Or he can have a small group just be in prayer. I mean, the small group here for 15 years was in prayer for whatever the Lord wanted to do.
Yeah.
They didn't know it was going to be in a year, 2 years, 3 years,
Yeah.
15 years. But this small group was faithful in praying for whatever that means. And in Florida, I saw a small church. They decided, and we're actually going to be, maybe I'll talk to you about this, see if you want to be a part of it. Uh, but they do a gathering on Pentecost Sunday,
Hmm.
and which is June 8th this year. And anyways, it was a small group, like, I don't know, couple dozen, like you said, couple dozen people, is a small group. They decided, oh, we want to invite other churches to cancel service and come worship together. That was 3 years ago. They did it in the backyard of a church. I attended, actually, and then my church didn't want to cancel, so I had to run back and preach at my church. But anyways, that's kind of whatever. But now it's 3 years later, and they're renting an arena they're going to have 10,000 people there.
My
So
gosh.
it's
For
like it,
years.
it when the Lord wants, it is
Wow.
all the Lord, and it's not a church. There's nothing to gain from the small group that started this. There's nothing to gain from it. They're just getting churches. They just started contacting churches. Would you be willing to cancel service and come worship with us? That's it. And churches
Wow.
are like, yes, we want to see Tampa Bay come to Christ. So you have that it started with 3 or 4 churches, and now there's 10, 20, 30, 40 churches involved where they're all canceling and coming together to worship just to pray for Tampa Bay. And it's like they got to
Wow.
rent an arena now to do it. It's amazing.
That is cool.
So the Lord can do everything, and I have a vision of doing that in Bristol. I have a vision of doing it for New England and Connecticut, and and I just talked to a pastor who pastors Restoration Church. His name's Craig, and he I said, hey, would you be willing to cancel services and come worship with us? And he said yes. He said, I love it. It's
That's
like it was just like, yeah, like we want to see people come to Christ. We have the same mission. We got different doctrines. We got different secondary beliefs. We worship differently. We do different things, but we have the same mission. And if what's
yeah.
primary is kept primary, the Lord will do amazing things. Like it's no question.
Oh, that is awesome. That is awesome. They have something like that up in Worcester, Massachusetts. It's
Okay.
not on Pentecost, but they do every year they do Hope for Worcester.
Yep.
And it started pretty much like you said. A group of people came together and they were from different congregations. They're like, let's do this. And
Yeah.
they got the area churches, different congregations, different denominations. They got a few area churches to get involved, and they're primarily for poor and homeless outreach, that kind of a thing. But
Right.
they do it with the basis of the church. So,
Right.
that so that God is preached, God is
Yeah.
proclaimed through this.
Absolutely. Love it.
And it's the coolest thing. And I've talked about this with our pastor John, and he would love to do something like that. We do a fall fest every year. Well, in the 3 years that he's been there, we do a fall fest. Last year, we really kind of upped our game and made it much more of a community festival thing,
Hmm.
and he's seeing it. He wants to grow it every year, and so he's looking at Hope for Worcester to kind of
Right.
get into that. It's difficult
Yeah.
talking pastors into sharing things,
Yeah.
into
It it
doing
it
things
real
together.
it is. It is. It really is. It is. You're not wrong.
No.
I I and so like the for me to stay humble and tell myself, you know, this pulpit is not mine, belongs to the
Yeah.
Lord.
Yeah.
So if our elders have a word to share, it is actually my responsibility to get the heck out of the way. It is
Yeah.
my job. If the Lord has a word and it's coming through someone else, like one of our elders or like John has told me, hey, I want to preach. It's not that like, oh, I want no, like I have to get out of the way.
Yeah.
And so it's like I just have to be in line with the Lord and where he's moving and what he's doing. Um, because we got all kinds of awesome ideas, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I have no shortage of awesome ideas. That's not the problem. So I want to be in line with what the Lord wants
Right.
and where He's moving. And so
Yeah.
that has, that stopped us probably from doing some things that we thought were cool that ended up, really that it wouldn't have been good. You know what I mean? And so, um, but what I do know is the church is coming together and families coming together is is always going to be honoring to the Lord. Like the unity, John 17, Jesus prays that the church would become one as I am one with the Father, so that the world would know that I was sent from you, that I was the real deal. So it's like the best evangelistic tool that we have is not standing on a corner preaching, which is I'm not condemning. It is not anything but the unification of the body, because when
Right.
the family's together, there is something unique that happens with the togetherness. I mean, in Acts 2, it goes out of its way to say that they were all together in one place. It goes out of its way to say that they were unified as one in one heart and one mind, praying for the same thing. And the Lord, there was a massive movement from the Lord. So getting the churches together and working together is is not easy. It's not easy,
No, no,
but
but
it's
look at
always
what
worth it.
happens. Tampa Bay, what, 3 years, it went from a backyard event to an arena event. I mean,
Amazing.
look at how God responded to that.
Right. And
That's
with no other agenda. You know what I mean?
no
There's
other agenda. Yeah. Yeah,
no
we're
other
not building
agenda.
a church. Are you even, do they even take an offering? That kind of a thing.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
right. What they did was they did donation. They basically did upfront donations to
love
rent the
offering.
arena,
Yeah.
to rent a space big enough to hold everybody involved. Uh, you know what I mean? And so it's like it's amazing. I hate to do this, but my phone is about to die, and I'm so
Oh my
sorry.
goodness.
I'm I'm looking at it and I'm like, are you serious right now?
Oh my gosh. Okay.
How
Well,
long have we been on?
it's almost 2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the average time?
We're averaging a little over two. So
Okay.
most of our I've done one interview that cut short right at two, but
Okay.
most of them go a little over. But yeah, brother, don't worry about it.
I
Don't
don't want
even
to I don't want to cut us off, but at the same time, I don't want this to just end without us having like an actual
an actual goodbye.
yeah. That would be really bad. So tell
Okay.
me about the that wouldn't be good.
I actually thought you were asking me. I'm like, where are you going? Your battery's
No,
gonna
I was saying I don't want it to end it with you asking me in the middle of a question you're asking me and then it just
I
cuts
get
off.
it. I get it. I get it. My brain caught up. I'm
That's
sorry.
funny.
My one brain cell was buffering. All right, brother. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was such an encouragement. My gosh, we're gonna have to get together for dinner.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, I'll text you afterwards and we'll get that going
Okay.
because
No,
yeah.
for sure.
And let's do this again. I mean,
Okay,
yeah, I think we got more to talk about.
for
So
sure.
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Matt, for coming on.
You
Just
can call me Tank too.
blessings.
That's what you want to call me.
What's that?
I said
I
you can call me Tank. That's what you want to call me. So
I don't want to. I'm just used to it. It's I
I
know.
trust.
For
I
those
know
of
it.
you who don't know, I met Matt as Tank. Like I learned your name much after, long after
I
I
was
went away.
always Tank in Connecticut. When I moved to Florida, I became Pastor Matt, and no one knew me as Tank. So that was like, and so coming back here, I hear way more Tank. So it's kind of nice to be home and get my, anyways.
Oh, but I don't know. I don't know.
No, no,
You're grown
whatever.
up. You're grown up now. You're not a kid.
I know.
You're Matt. It's okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But I do slip. I do slip. I don't know if you heard me earlier, but I absolutely
Yeah.
slipped. But anyways, it has been a joy to talk to you, to catch up with you. Blessings on your church, brother. That's amazing. And yeah, we're gonna have to do this again.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm sure we will always have something to talk about. I love it, and thank you for having me. And pray for for the ministry and the church and for this podcast and everything. I just pray God blesses it and it goes awesome and continues to grow.
Thank you so much. Uh,
Absolutely.
all right. Thank you guys. Catch us next time. We're done, Elizabeth.